Hello everyone, Simon here from the Wells of Wall Street. We got a VeChain video here for you guys today, VET on the exchange. Guys, this is one that I've been holding for a long time. I want to ignite the excitement within my mind towards this great project, great technology. Kind of main reasons behind this, particularly as a topic today. Here in the UK, I'm sure many of you know now, we had the approval via royal assent in relation to the digitalisation of trade finance. But of course, trade finance incorporates so many areas and aspects of trade around the world, including things such as supply management, or certainly supply chain at least, and supply chain management, SCM. And this is something really that has a gigantic market value. So we're going to go into a bit of that in a second, and just a bit of a relay as to what VeChain's been up to more recently as well, news-wise, and why I'm quite excited about the existing price points that VeChain currently hovering around. And we'll look into a bit more detail about that. So guys, before we go into that, don't forget to, of course, smash that subscribe button. And you can also hit the bell notification. Some people are saying that they don't get notified sometimes when our new videos go out, so make sure you do that, and then of course you'll get the nice message notifications on your phone, etc., as and when we release new videos. Now guys, let's go straight into this as a topic. So first and foremost, I just wanted to talk about supply chain in general. So one of the big aspirations of VeChain and the abilities that it has through its toolkits and everything that it provides to its developers, its API frameworks, and companies that want to use its services is a huge element about track and trace. Now, why is this interesting? Why is this important? Not just as us as investors to understand a bit more, but for those companies out there, why do they need to have this kind of aspect of technology to improve what they're doing already? Now, of course, the supply chain network has been around for a long time. Even in my Egyptian studies, we know that trade probably began maybe even earlier than ancient Egypt, but for sure in the diploma of Egyptology that I have, it was very much apparent that these were one of the first civilizations to incorporate the notion of trade outside of their own country. Particularly, I think back then was like Persia, even makeup was created, all these crazy things that many people still use to this day, of course. But going off track there, but more importantly about that point is that time has passed, and evolution of things like trade and way we do things, the way we pay for things, cross-border payments, now going into more of a digitalization of this and how things operate in terms of supply and demand, and your whole entire operation is very manual still at the moment, albeit a lot of API work, cloud work has been going on to enhance the servicing around the supply chain management systems. But look at this for a second. So the benefits, by the way, this isn't focusing at all on blockchain technology. This is just actually track and trace and generalization of the existing systems that the world uses today. So obviously there's a bit of a reduction in cost, where it tells you here it allows businesses to reduce the costs, is because businesses can identify problems in the supply chain quickly and take corrective action, which reduces the time and money spent on resolving the issue. We've got improved customer service. It's quite an interesting point actually, where people can actually have a more real-time view of where their products are, not necessarily like where the ship is in the world or the planes in the world, but more about the time scale, the actual time scale of when that product might arrive to your house. It's a bit like Domino's Pizza, where you can go on the website and you watch that little pizza circle go around to see when's your pizza going to be ready and then delivered. So there's those aspects of there. So from a customer efficiency and experience perspective, that's definitely quite a big thing that people look for these days. Increased efficiency. This is again kind of talking about real time here. Of course, again, it doesn't really massively mention here about AI integration. We'll go into that in a minute, because that's really important. AI, blockchain, and what VeChain is capable of. This is why I get so excited about it as we talk about this a bit further. Increased visibility, not just for consumers, but of course businesses as well. Again, I'll go on to that in a second as well, just from my experiences in distribution and how the supply chain worked in my personal experiences through my career, and improved accuracy. So there's loads of cool things there. The challenges, potentially cost, again, a great point here. So in the existing systems or softwares that are out there that's not incorporating the likes of AI and blockchain can be very expensive. And that includes things like training, the overheads, the actual implementation of these systems could be quite heavy, especially if they're like, major hardware changes. Complexities, it talks about systems, perhaps interoperability, integration of communication between one system talking to another. Can you see the pattern I'm going along, guys? All the videos that we talk about interoperability and what blockchain can bring to the table, it's ticking these boxes, which hopefully leads to the story of why VeChain is such an important, prominent project and technology out there. We've got data security, obviously another thing that blockchain can massively take care of, especially with the integration of things like Oracle clouds, etc. Integration, very much the similarity there to what we just said a minute ago about interoperability, and of course adoption. Now, of course, with the likes of adoption can obviously kind of link very heavily to things like cost and the complexities and all the other things on top of it as well. It's really very interesting. One thing that's quite poignant here is the investment in technology. So the first step of using supply chain track and trace is to invest in the right technology. This means investing in the hardware and software necessary to track and trace goods throughout the supply chain. Again, not fully focusing at all on blockchain in general, but it does have the ideology that things were going to evolve organically. We've now got this technology ahead of us that can really enhance this and speed this up quite significantly. Just some final points here. This will allow them to quickly identify potential issues, take corrective actions, result in improved efficiency, cost savings. Also, here we go. It did mention it slightly at the end. I thought I'd leave that here. Artificial intelligence, machine learning. Again, we'll talk about those massive points there, and blockchain technology. So you can see it's talking very heavily about generics, and then we go into the future, the thought process in the future of what can be achieved with the use of blockchain and AI. So here we got this, for example. This is actually an article literally yesterday of all, very convenient for this video. VeChain blockchain revolutionizing supply chain tracking for unparalleled transparency and customer trust. So we talked about quite a few things in previous videos with VeChain, but also in general, just through my enthusiasm towards the space and the technology of how this can all really work in the favor of the likes of VeChain. One interesting case study here is apparel clothing. So also uses blockchain technology as a technological tool for its own development. Each fashion item is individually matched with a unique ID stored on the blockchain. This is based on VeChain's one item, one code traceability method. So it's very interesting to see that. It's obviously just like one case study and one company that is using their services. There's a load of other ones here. We'll go on to that in a second in the enterprise partnership page of VeChain. But there's a multitude of reasons why track and trace, other than the ones we just mentioned from this particular area of interest that we saw on the GEP.com website. But there's a load of other reasons. So the machine learning and the AI side of it is something that I'm very familiar with in one of my previous jobs, working in artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, all these crazy things, right, that are coming to fruition now across the world, left, right and center, really, even biometrics. But the utilization of QR codes becomes heavily involved in all this as well. But machine and AI learning is very important from the supply chain mechanism, certainly from a forecasting perspective, supply and demand. It was great to be on Lewis Jackson's channel yesterday, which went live, and I did touch a bit further into that particular area of interest in technology. This is very much focusing on a full automated simultaneous system where, even to the point of you taking something out of the fridge or reordering something, or your trend, your behaviors through purchasing, which is all massively in the digital footprint now of every single one of us. Some companies that I've worked for before, we worked with retailers that have the ability to know before you do when you're going to buy something, and it would trigger purchase psychology towards that. I won't name them because the technology is pretty superior. But even in the FMCG, what we're talking here about, fast consumer moving goods, where we're talking about things like greengrocers or grocery stores, the likes of Tesco's here in the UK, Sainsbury's, etc. There was one familiar name in the UK supermarket-wise where I went to their head office, and they have literally got a room that looks like NASA. I think I mentioned this before. If you're new to the channel, you wouldn't have heard this before, but it's like NASA. There was about, I would say, between sort of 100 to 300 TV screens. Each one had a different commodity, a different material analyzed on it at real time, so it would know the cost of cardboard, the cost of metal, titanium, whatever you want. So it meant that if a supplier came to them and said, hey guys, we're going to charge you this and you can make this much profit, they could easily turn around and say, you're taking too much margin of us, here's why. And they could tell you, like, this product should not cost this much, it should cost this much because of the data that we've got. So there's all these things, but when you start piecing that mentality together, you've got the analysis of that side, the automation, the AI, building that data through everything that we're feeding that system, basically, to the incorporation of actually then devising a plan to forecast ahead of time and really generate that forecasting in terms of supply and demand mechanism too. This is very manually focused for a long time. It has improved over the years, but now there's this ability to speed that up significantly. Sure, many people will probably be removed out of jobs, as we are seeing left, right and center with loads of different automation and robotics coming in, of course. But this point being is that the utilization or digitalization utility of smart contracts, as an example, a company being able to sign something vice versa within seconds rather than days, paperwork sitting in piles or in emails, all this kind of stuff, just to be done like with almost the quick as clicking your finger, can be literally done within seconds, and that can boost up the economy significantly. No, we're talking about the supply chain management system here, guys. This is very much around, I think last year was around 27 something billion dollars worth as a supply chain management market value. By 2032 they anticipate that to be 75 or so billion dollars worth. So you can see that's just supply management, the supply management side of things, and that includes the track and traceability of blockchain technology's abilities within this side of thing as well. But with AI, the algorithmic data, even from harvesting and seeding, as I said, picking, automations of transportation, deliveries, obviously will be driverless very soon as well. That includes blockchain from a transactional perspective in terms of speeding that up as well. Algorithmic data of how long do you wait till you buy a certain item, or you've just taken something out of the fridge and then in real time it tells you what you need to replace. All of these crazy things, guys. And even from the traceability perspective, certainly even to the point where you as a consumer could go, where has this product actually come from? So when we talk about ESG, certainly a massive topic at the moment and will be for the next couple of years as climate change narratives keep going, all of this kind of stuff, we can delve in and go, actually I don't want to buy this product anymore because I can see that it's not sustainable, or the person at the other end who's harvested this has not been paid enough. And all of these things can be incorporated within data, whether it be a QR code or an NFC tag, whatever you might want to have with it, can hold this data. Of course, we know with blockchain, when we come back to all this aspect here of security, data, cost, etc. Well, VeChain and loads of other chains have this capability as well, but we've got to look at the kind of facts and figures really of what VeChain is basically capable of. Cost wise, I think it's like less than a cent per transaction at the moment still. That's of course using the VeThor aspect of VeChain, which is the kind of like energy, if you like. You can see from a sustainability perspective, next to nothing in terms of energy consumption per transaction. And then you've got all these things here where it's showing, well, actually, there's a lot of users, there's a lot of businesses using this solution and technology, and there's loads of transactions to date since it began. I think it began actually in 2015, to be honest. I believe the original founder, or the founder in general, was from Louis Vuitton, I'm sure. Well, I read that a while back. But all of these things tick the boxes. And we did talk about XDC's Infin, particularly in the major announcement that we had in the UK about digitalisation of trade finance. But it got me thinking that actually there's a load of other projects that I hold in my portfolio that this really massively applies to. Now, VeChain, I believe, if I remember, started in China. It's now, I think, based in San Marino in Europe. But you can see here loads of partners that are using VeChain already. There will be many, many more being added to this. But if you think about supply chain in general, and that's just arguably one of the parts of what VeChain can provide as a solution, it puts us in massive good stead. And if the rest of the world follows suit of the UK with its announcements of digitalisation of trade finance, and you can imagine they're all going to have their own different blockchains, their own systems, their API frameworks, whatever. And that's when interoperability as a conversation kicks in, hence why we talk about Quant, etc. XRP, for example, for cross-border payments or settling those in a finite way. This kind of project, this kind of technology from VeChain has its massive place in this as well. And that massive aspect of machine learning is very important too, because it can learn off each other. And as it starts talking to other chains, which are all equally arguably machines, this is where AI and certainly quantum computing really takes over, guys. It's something that humans just simply cannot catch up with our own mindsets and even our technologies that we've put in place before. It's accelerating to beyond, you know, the remit of what we could ever thought we would achieve in such a short space of time. So this all coming together is very, very interesting indeed. And it's one of the reasons why I'm excited about VeChain. I've held it for some time. I stupidly didn't sell any in the bull cycle that we had in 2021. I probably would have retired and never done videos ever again if that was the case. But that was a lesson learned back then for sure. But it's not one I'm going to make a mistake of the next time round. As we talk shortly about the price points of VeChain and where it could get to and where it was in the past. It's really important that we really understand these projects inside out. I've done an intro video to VeChain a while back. Go check that out. I'll leave it at the end of this one. Probably needs a bit of an update because VeChain since then, a couple of years ago, has not necessarily changed direction of where it's focusing. It's just really done a great job of its branding and certainly making it more presentable to that B2B or large enterprise orientation of customer, which I think is massively important. If blockchain was going to continue, these kind of projects needed to familiarize themselves with how kind of like Web 2 operates, but then incorporating the Web 3 technology on top of that. And that's how it should always be, in my opinion. So there's massive things going on with these guys. That was arguably a pretty poor example that they put in here as a case study. Obviously it's very interesting, but we've got to understand there's so many applications to this. Even think about BMW. Car parts or where they've come from, or actually that emotion of how long it takes for a car to be imported, exported, the customs checks, all of these things that take so long can now be eradicated from days or weeks to next to nothing in like minutes or an hour. Absolutely mental. IoT is obviously a really important part of this as well. Internet of Things, when we talk about wireless devices, hence why I was talking about taking things out of the fridge, or your buying behaviors and where people get their things from. All of these things will link up, and that's where blockchain comes in from its verification, processing power perspectives. You got AI that's driving the data and the algorithms in there. You got cloud arguably holding data and storing certainly customer usage data, etc. All of these things will link together, guys, and it's kind of exciting but scary at the same time. But it really does open the eyes up and the thought process to what VeChain was about. And it's not just VeChain, as I said, there's a multitude of different chains, technologies out there that they can incorporate themselves in their own way, in their own countries, and in their own remit. But this has developed so well over the last few years. And VeChain, in my opinion, is one of the top projects to hold in my portfolio. I'm sure many of you do already. If you haven't, it's definitely worth doing a load more research yourselves, of course. Don't just take my word for it. There's loads of video channels out there that really sing highly of VeChain. There's a few crazy ones that don't, but they just tend to talk nonsense, to be honest, and no kind of backing as to why they don't like it. It's probably because they did what I did a couple of years ago and missed out. So there you go. But guys, that kind of wraps up the information side of it of VeChain. As I said, do your own research. And if you haven't learned before about machine learning, deep learning, AI, stuff like this, I'm not talking about ChatGPT and all this stuff. I'm talking about real intricate detail AI utilization within blockchain. Definitely do more research on it. It's really interesting. And as an investor, some people out there might just jump in money because they hear things from other people, this and that. But honestly, I implore people to just learn a bit more about it. It's really interesting, and it puts you in good stead to like plan your own lives as well as your investments, in my opinion. And certainly from a working criteria, I see so many jobs, the ability to potentially disappear over the coming years as these technologies come in. So you can kind of plan ahead with that, all of that as well. So after this, guys, let's jump straight into the chart of VeChain. I've pulled it out all the way back so we can see the full history of VeChain. So where's my point here? Back in 2030, that's in the future. I'm not from the future yet. March 2020, I was thinking of the 03 there and the 20, never mind. March 2020, saw that big dip that we saw across the whole entire market. It was all the way back here, guys, and that was sort of around roughly 0.5 cent. I started buying VeChain around that mark, but also more prominently around the sort of 3 to 5 cent mark. I saw the upscale go all the way up to sort of 27, 28 cents. I didn't do anything. It came back down, and I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing, really, to be honest, at that point in time. It was just absolutely crazy. I was working in the Web3 space, didn't have much time to manage or look at all these things constantly. I won't make that mistake again at all, but just to reiterate, here's the dip down in 2020. So you see even lower positions before that, but my point is that there is lack of data, and that's why I drew these ages ago. This area is of interest to me as a buying opportunity, because yes, it could come down lower to that lower than 1 cent mark. Of course it can at any time, but this is a really interesting area because we're at a testing ground, and that's proven really certainly since December, where we've bounced up and down in this particular area. Both here, you can see the resistance at the lower spectrum. When it came back down, it pulled itself back up, and we're still trying to magnetize ourselves around this area. Something we haven't seen other than the last 6 or 7 months. We haven't seen since the latter stage of 2020, between this period of August and December. After that, the bull run came in, absolutely gigantic, but it left this massive black gap. Okay, and that's my point, is that we haven't had enough data around this area to say we can conclude this as a support and move our ways up towards those big bull cycle moves again. Now, we're not going to see that for a while anyway, because of all the crazy events around the world, certainly all the crazy narratives around interest rates, hikes, etc. So we've got a bit of time, but it's that time that runs out quite quickly sometimes. And that's why I'm excited about this current kind of area. Yes, of course, it'd be always great to get that 0.5 cent knocked off, but in my honest opinion, certainly anything under 5 cents of VeChain is an absolute steal. Of course, the 5 cent mark's all the way up here, guys. This is how well, not necessarily early. If you're new to VeChain, it's definitely early. If you're involved or have invested in VeChain for a number of years, like I have, it's not so early, but it's certainly something where you go, I wish I bought something at that price, or I wish I bought more around this area. Well, it's staring us in the face. The only difficulties at the moment around the world, mostly at the moment, is lack of disposable income, or these things to put into the market. So we have to kind of have that risk assessment, absolutely, but just identify as well that we're in currently very opportunist areas for VeChain as a token. The VET token is positioning itself. So the fluctuation is not gigantic. 0.5 cent to many people may not mean much. Some it does. It depends on the volumes that you're trying to accumulate or are accumulating. But in general, I've still got these buy orders at these trigger points, certainly at the 1.5 cent. I've still got one down just under 1 cent. Hasn't done that area since November 2020. So who knows? Could be a bit of a crypto crash at any point, and it could definitely try and pull it down to that area. So that's why DCA, that's why I've got limit orders at various areas. But it's this between these orange lines, literally 2 cents and sort of 1.5 cents of great interest. And it's proven, as I said, with these markers here of data points on the resistance and the support that we have seen in this short term. It's putting itself back to this area constantly, and that's a stable line in my opinion. For me as an investor, not financial advice, just for me, I sit there and I go, cool, I'm happy to do manual orders at this area, irrespective of my limit orders that I've got in place. And right now, as of now, the last couple of days have had a bit of a drop. So we're retesting this 0.0179 mark that I've got as a fib retracement level. So if that breaks, we could argue that we might see some potential moves in some of the lower spectrum areas that we've seen before. So we could see ourselves come back to that 1.5 cent mark to retest, whether it be in the next couple of weeks or the next month or so, will remain to be seen. But the point is, there's massive opportunity because, first of all, and I do believe in the next big bull cycle, we will for sure get to this marker. I anticipate, guys, that we could easily get to that sort of 70 cent to $1 mark come the end of 2025, or around that marker when the big bull cycle kicks in again. So there's a couple of data reasons. Fib retracements aren't always the best answer. They certainly give you a bit of an indication as to where the next big happy points will be as we move up these charts. Yeah, it's going to take some time to get there, but for sure you can at least expect us to hit 2 or 3 more levels up from the previous all-time high, and that would take us around that sort of 73 cent mark. Certainly we'll see volatility at those areas. So there's probably some indications there. If we plan ahead now, we're buying at this sort of 2 cent area. Well, we could argue that 10 cents a good starting point, but certainly we'll see volatility around the previous all-time high, which matches up with the fib level there. But then these other stages up here, you can start to anticipate potentially some markers just below that and just above that, where we'll see that kind of volatile movements over those weeks or months periods when it does come around, and exactly the same as around here. We can position ourselves, plan ahead. I'm sure we do have a bit more time than a few weeks from now, obviously. I think about sort of, maybe 12 to 18 months, we'll start seeing that cycle really switch around. And that's my point. Where these low areas of VeChain now, there's massive opportunity for gain and some significant return on investment, in my opinion, especially with the development of technology. Now we've got the laws and regulations coming in for digitalisation of trade finance, and that does include supply chain management as well. Hence why we've got this topic on the board right now. So let's see how that plays out. From a trading perspective, right now, as I said, the price point where it is at the moment, the RSIs are showing good confidence areas of stability. 45 on the 14-day, 28 days showing 47. Would like to see both those numbers come down just a tad, but I wouldn't be angry as such right now to be putting some manual positions in personally for myself. But the performance indicators on the right hand side, it's not amazing, but most of the market is pretty much like this anyway. But it just confirms again that the strength of VeChain, the opportunity of VeChain, these numbers actually scream out to me to say, hey Simon, you need to keep going with this one, because you'll just be complaining like you did last time that you wish you got more at these current areas. So they're my thoughts and feelings on VeChain, guys. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Sorry, it's a bit of a long one today, but I just wanted to really re-emphasize the technological opportunity with VeChain, and to keep an eye out, guys, for AI related and certainly supply chain related projects out there. There's many of them, but certainly some of them are ahead of the game other than others. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next VeChain update video. Take care. Bye bye.